Yes, I'm honored to be here, and we certainly appreciate the help that you do for us in our work. You've been with us for a long, long time. We've been doing this for about 30 years, and you've been involved most of that time. We really appreciate that, and we appreciate tonight. Had a good meal there just a few minutes ago, and I'm so full I can't hardly talk. So anyway, this is exciting, and actually got Mission Center here. That's good too. I'll just get right into it. I understand I got about 15 minutes, so I'll go quickly. Let me figure out how to get this part to work now. Okay, good. Most of this you remember from other presentations. There's three things that we do to spread the gospel, and I'll mention the last year's been very good. The first half of this year is off to a very, very good year, but we use radio, television, and literature to reach masses. We follow up to those who respond to the media work. We get about 300,000 people a year who study by correspondence, by responding to the mass media. Then we go out on campaigns to where people are responding, and we baptize 3,000 to 4,000 people every year. We're on track to do that this year in our campaign program. And then finally, we operate a dozen Bible colleges across the areas where we work, and in those schools, we take about 500 or 600 people from those who have been baptized that are good candidates to become leaders and teachers and train them in our schools. Our goal there is to have some in every new congregation who have a very deep understanding of the Scripture so they can lead in those new congregations. The principle of using Bible schools to evangelize goes all the way back to the first century, where we see Paul in Acts chapter 19, where it's recorded, evangelizing Asia by teaching in the school of Tyrannus. And it says over a 2-year period, all of Asia heard the gospel by doing this. And so that's a good precedent for the approach that we use. And these are the locations of our schools all across Asia, which is our #1 target area. The biggest country that we cover in entirety is India. This is a nation of 1.3 billion people, 4 times the population of the United States. We have 2 operating bases, one in the north in New Delhi, down south in Bangalore. We're doing the best work ever in North India, and this young man on the left here is a whole lot of the reason for that. His name is Vinay David. He's in his early 30s, same age as my youngest son. And Vinay trained in Florence at Heritage Christian University, went back and became the president of our school there. And he started a television program. One of those programs where he had all those circles was his. And he is preaching and teaching in the Hindi language, which is the national language of India, at a prime time on Saturday, a good day for that, getting thousands of responses a month. And it's opened the door for us to go in many, many new places all across North India. And Vinay's doing a good job of following up on that. Places where there's never been anybody before, and we're just excited. Has a new wife, Reshma, who works with him. That's Reshma there teaching a children's class. Of course, baptisms, lots of literature and electronic materials going out. Vinay's he's speaking there at their home congregation in their new building. And last summer, Joey was there with this young man. Vinay's translating for him, who's a heritage student, doing some work with teachers of young people. South India, our team there is a father-son team as well. P.R. Swami on the left and his son Douglas on the right. This is the biggest work we have anywhere in the world. 60,000 baptisms, more than 60,000 in this work. Brother Swami is a master evangelist, almost 80 years old, working out of Bangalore. Again, Hindu territory, 70% of India is Hindu. And of course, we don't think about this, but most people in India live in rural areas. 70% of their population live and farm-type areas like this you see here in the background. So mass media is very, very good for reaching that scattered population. Joey did a youth program last year, and he had 400 and something folks who are interested in advancing congregations by helping with their youth programs and training them to do a better job. And it was really good to see the church reaching that stage of development. Here's one youth group that Joey was working with. The second country is Burma. Most of our workers, if we take them to Burma, they want to go back, and they don't want to go anywhere else many times. It's the country is called Myanmar today. 4 red pins mark our 4 schools in Burma, and 60 million people here. It's a Buddhist country, old line Buddhism, very strong. And we really wondered if we could succeed there. We've been there about 19 years. And we have. In our Myanmar Bible College, we have trained about 2,000 people. And they've come from all over the country. It's kind of like Paul did at the School of Tyrannus. They come in, we train them, and they go back, and there's congregations in homes, about 2,000 congregations today. So it's been a real good, successful effort to get across that country. We train men and women. These are graduates of the school. Graduation day, drinking a soft drink, cost 50 cents. Never had one before in their life, because that's half as much as the average person makes in a week in that country. It's very, very poor there. Baptized a few in the school, but most that come are already Christians who are training for leadership. This is a congregation near Yangon or Rangoon. The next several pictures, that's me teaching, and then here's the Bates from Mississippi and Dr. Stephen Christian from Double Springs. All these pictures are at the same congregation. Our workers, there are certain points that we touch on all of our trips, and this is one of them, because this man here is one of our team leaders for the country. His name is Jay Ati. He's about to baptize that young lady there. He speaks about a half a dozen languages, very, very important to our work in China, as well as northern Burma. And then he works on a college campus with about 40,000 students and trains a lot of folks that go all over the country. This is another evangelist from the north who's now working in the south, the Delta area, Namong. You can have Bible schools, vacation Bible schools in Burma today. Their laws changed about 3 years ago, and they now have freedom of religion, at least they call it that. And you can do some advertising, and there are so many children in that country, and so you can gather big crowds like you've got here tonight for VBS, and of course that leads eventually to their parents coming and studying and learning, and it's really exciting to see that. Our branch schools from the main campus near Rangoon are Mandalay and Calais. And these are some pictures in Calais, mostly children in these classes. And then Magina over on the China side. This work it's one of our smaller areas of Burma. It's up in the Himalayan mountains. These are people that are very, very, they're different from most of the rest of the country, but they are very pro-American, and they also have opened the door into China for us. Most of these people have family that live in China. So this is our gateway into China. On the right there is Luke, who is Chinese. He is the brother of a man who works for the governor of the state right across the border in China from where they are. So he's got good political connections to make sure things go well. And he's trained as a journalist. And of course he was taught in our school and leads our campaign program there. One of the few places we have cold enough weather to see some snow. Then over in China, 3 states that we're getting into. They are states where the church is legal. You know, we hear about China and how hard it is to get recognition. They're talking about Eastern China. But the church was grandfathered in here because it was there in 1900. The church was there. And these 3 states just reinstated legal status for the churches that were there back then, back when they adopted a national freedom of religion policy. They could enact that state by state. So from Burma, we train people, go over into China, they speak the language, and we've got a really good on-the-ground program reaching across an area of China that has about 300 million people. There's 2 of our workers looking across the border in the mountains there, and there's a border crossing through a tunnel. There are many, many thousands of old denominational buildings in China that were, the government took them in 1968 during the Cultural Revolution. And the government has maintained those buildings all through the years, and we can rent them today in these states in particular and use them for our projects there. And they're rented to us very, very cheaply. So there's our China class meeting there in that building and getting ready to go evangelize in the various towns and cities that they're from. And of course, again, the idea is to ground them so that they don't need a lot of supervision. They just need to be encouraged and certainly resources supplied to them. There's Jayati teaching and in the classroom there. And one of the resources that they always are given is literature in their own language. And that motorbike there is loaded down with books. One of them is a book about worship. The other one is a book about God. And we have that in Chinese and the mountain language called Lei Su. And print those and get them out, and that results in them being able to study when you're not there. The Philippines, easy work. The easiest work we have anyway, anywhere in the world. It's a country the only Asian country that would call itself a Christian nation. We base our work in Cebu, and our school is called the Philippine Institute of Biblical Studies. This was last summer when I was there, and there's Robin Dunaway and Barry Smith, and I think that's all of us that were there for that one. This is a really important team that works with us because they help us not only in the Philippines, but they help us all over Asia. The Filipino team that works with us there. That's the school building. That's the director, Ruben Imperato. He's been sick. We've been kind of filling in for him some. I was teaching there last summer. That's another new team member that we have from up in Missouri. He's retired from the College of the Ozarks, and a really good teacher. He's worked in India a lot of years, helping us now. In November of 2013, a typhoon hit the Visayas, the central islands of the Philippines, killed almost 10,000 people, and 100,000 or more homes were destroyed. Just really devastating. It was a dead hit on some of our biggest areas of work there. And all of our co-workers, all of our Filipino workers that work with us normally in the evangelism programs had to get involved in relief, had to go help bury the dead. That's a mass grave. And that's the first thing they had to do, is just take care of bodies, so many of them. And then the next thing to do was to help the living with medical supplies and water and food and blankets and something to make a tent out of, tarpaulins. And we channeled several $100,000 of aid sent to us by churches through a medical clinic that the church operates there. We're involved with it some, and also through our Bangalore Institute, the college. Set up 20 relief camps. And in these camps we had a Christian doctor, a member of the church in every camp, several preachers and other workers just to do the things that had to be done, and about 20 workers in each camp started handing out all these materials they needed. And I thought this was just going to destroy our evangelism work for the year, because everybody was involved in relief, and that's all we could do. And we had to do it, obviously. And so, but our workers every night would get together and have a devotional. After they'd worked 16 hours some days, they'd all just gather around and sing and pray and sometimes have one of them speak. And the people in the community there would see what was going on, and they would come and listen, and they got where they'd come and participate. And so it ended up that we're still having 20 massive revivals. I mean, people were coming every night, and we baptized. We set a record in the Philippines on baptisms last year. Over 500 people baptized in our 20 relief camps. So what I thought was going to be a disaster as far as the evangelism work is concerned turned into a very, very successful year. And we had several hundred more baptized in some of the other areas where we were able to continue our regular programs. These are just pictures from the camps, devotionals. That's one of those nighttime devotionals. Baptisms, lots of them. That's a group being baptized there. That's in another camp. One of the main things we did for relief is help people get back to work. We built hundreds of boats. You can see them back there. They're not painted. And then when they're painted, we put Church of Christ on there so that we're not ashamed of who we are. And from our relief program, and those people went back to their living trade, which was to fish. And in 3 of our camps, we actually built permanent structures to be extensions of our school, because I think we're going to have a lot of growth in those new areas. This was last summer when I was there, just visiting those locations, and hundreds of people showed up, so I was able to do some teaching. Very, very hot weather, some of the hottest I've ever been in my life, but it was great to be there. Malaysia and Indonesia, 300 million Muslims in these countries combined. And this is the largest single-language Muslim population in the world. We have a small work there because anything you do in an Islamic area has to be low-key and small. But this congregation is well over 100 members here, and there's several congregations that are in that immediate area, and we have good steady growth across the work area, about 50 to 100 baptisms a year in that Muslim population. Vietnam, very hard work, very dangerous work because the military government is very, very anti-Christian. Of course, they have to have freedom of religion to trade with us, which we do a lot of trade with them. But the way they actually persecute us and hinder us with a law that says you have freedom of religion is they require any church to register with the government. And when you do, the government assigns a person to that congregation or to that church to be over it. And so you really don't have freedom of religion in that environment. It would be a non-believer, of course. So all the congregations are underground. We based our work in Saigon and Hanoi. Classes are in secret, just like here in this hotel room. Worship has to be inside, even baptisms to keep from getting caught. The man baptized in there has been in prison for about 25 out of the last 40 years for preaching the gospel. Just really a hero in the faith in many ways, and a couple of those there too. And but they're eager to learn, and they're hungry for the gospel. The people are, even though the government's against it. So we take the chances we take in Vietnam because the door is wide open as far as the people are concerned. This is a young man here on the right that we have a lot of hope for as a leader. His dad is one of those preachers who's worked all through these communist years since the 1970s when we left there. His name is An. We hope to bring him here for his graduate studies in Bible so that he can be the president of our Bible college there, Vietnam Bible College. He's about to baptize that young lady there. We have work in South America targeting Spanish and Portuguese-speaking people with radio programs. And we started that work to try to reach rural populations, jungle populations, mountain people, because most mission efforts target the cities. And of course, there's a few, I know y'all have a work in Guyana, the English-speaking little country there, and also there's a couple of others. I think there's one French, and I forgot the other one, but most of the population is Spanish-speaking, and a lot of Portuguese in Brazil. And we're getting a lot of response to these programs. It's a way for these people to hear in some way. And we have follow-up teams that go out. That's a new congregation up in the Andes Mountains, and that's a class in Brazil that Joey's working with a group down there, a school that was already there. Randy Short, a missionary there, has started this school, and then we added the outreach part to the program and to get into Brazil. So that's an overview. I've just touched on a few places, and of course very briefly, but it lets you know how things are going, where we've been, what we're trying to accomplish. We expect a lot of growth in Vietnam. We expect a whole lot of growth in China, and we solicit your prayers in those areas, especially because there are many, many, many places where there's nothing, no way for people to hear, and we're trying to get something there in those places where people can at least have access to the gospel. And of course, all the other places, so many people. 1 million people a day die who have never heard the gospel. And yet the Lord has told us to go into all the world and to teach every person. And so there's just so much that we need to do, and we need to try to look for ways to be more efficient all the time, and we do. We try very, very hard to do that. I don't know how I'm on time. I don't have a watch. Joey, what kind of time? Okay, when do I stop? 8? Well, let me tell you a story that will wrap it up. Last summer, when I got home from my trip to the Philippines, it was kind of an unscheduled or unplanned trip initially. I got behind on my reporting, and so the first Sunday I was home, I reported to 5 congregations. Now, you can do that. You can go somewhere at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and 6 o'clock. If you can get those congregations lined up right, well, I'm too old to do that. So after those 3 morning meetings, I was really tired, and I was able to go to the house, and I crawled in my recliner and stretched out there and was just about to go to sleep, and the telephone rang because I had 2 more appointments that day. And it was Brother P.R. Swami. I had his picture there a minute ago, over in Bangalore, India. So I knew it was an important call because it's 2:30 Sunday afternoon, which is about 2:30 in the morning over there. And he normally is up past midnight, but he'll hit the bed before that. So I wondered what he was calling, what he wanted to tell me. We talk about once a month, and usually at a more normal time. And so we go through our usual exchange of how's your family and your family, this sort of thing. And then I know he wants to tell me something, so I said, well, what's going on? He says, oh, we had a good day today, had 39 baptisms. That's the normal day for him, so I knew that wasn't it. And then he said, brother, he said, you wouldn't believe what happened to me last week. Well, I knew this was his reason for the call. Last Monday morning early, he said, I got a call from a friend of mine who's a doctor. Brother Swami is a medical doctor too. They had gone to med school together, grew up together, and this friend lives in the capital of the state, Chennai. And he said, Swami, I want you to come to a conference, a medical conference that's going to be held here this week. There's going to be 1,500 people here from all over India, and I want you to come. Well, Swami said, well, you know, I haven't been a practicing physician, and so why would I need to come? He said, I just want you to come, Swami, as a friend. Do it as a favor to me. So Swami went. And what they were doing in this conference is they were addressing, they had all kinds of speakers addressing 3 problems that are destroying India. And And I mean, it's ripping the country apart. The first one is drugs. And we know about that in America. It's just hit over there, though. And they don't know how to deal with it. Millions and millions of young people making money and jobs with foreign companies that have come in there, making 10, 50, or 50 times as much as their family has made. All this money, entire communities of young people and drug people from over here have just descended on them. And millions of those young folks are addicted to narcotic drugs, and it goes the same way there as it does here. And they don't know what to do about it. They don't know how to start to solve that problem. So we're going to talk about it. Second problem is assault of women. It's an embarrassing epidemic problem in India. And the reason is because it's a Hindu culture. The Hindus, many of them, the poor ones, because they have to give a dowry when their daughter marries, they kill their baby girls. And they don't talk about this. If you were to ask most any Indian about that, he'd deny it today. But it happens. Millions of babies are killed every year. And they're girls. So there are lots more men than women in any age. The result, assaults. Millions of assaults on women. Violent, murders. And they're ashamed of it and don't know what to do about it. The third problem is AIDS. India has an order of magnitude more cases of AIDS than Africa does. One country and all those countries in Africa all together don't match India. It's a horrible problem. Millions of babies born every year already infected with that virus. So they're going to talk about how do we address these problems that are just ripping the life out of the next generation in our nation. Swami sat there and listened, he said, day after day to psychiatrists and psychologists and government officials and powerful, important people, well-educated people, and he's trying to think himself. And the third afternoon, the moderator gets up to introduce the next speaker. And there's a printed program, and he said, I'm going to leave the program for a few minutes, and I'm going to ask a speaker to come up here who's not on our program and give us his thoughts on these things we're talking about. I would like to ask Dr. P.R. Swami to come up here and speak. Swami said it scared him to death. Just started sweating all over, and he's almost 80 years old, and he said, man, I don't know if I can do it. But anyway, he got enough courage and he went on up there. And as he walked up, he thought, how can I put this together? He's talking to high caste Hindus and Muslims, important people, people who know they're important. And so he got up there and he leaned over to the microphone. He said, I'm going to give you a one-word solution to all these problems. That word is Jesus. It's Jesus. Well, he's talking to these Hindus and Muslims. He expects the next thing that will happen is somebody will pick up a chair and throw it at him, or maybe a rock, or whatever they can get their hands on, and scream and yell and throw him out of there. That's normally what would happen in India. But they didn't do that. It got deathly quiet. And it kind of surprised Swami, and he thought, well, I wasn't expecting this. And so he leaned back over to the microphone and he said, can I tell you just a little bit about my Jesus? He thought, I'm a preacher. This is an opportunity. 1,500 people here. I'm going to offer to tell them about our Lord. He thought, I'll probably get thrown out now for sure. So he's waiting for the reaction. But it didn't happen. It stayed quiet. And in just a few seconds, people started standing up on their feet. And in just a minute or so, 1,500 people standing ovation out of respect for this 80-year-old man of God. Well, why did they react in that way? Not because they wanted him to tell about Jesus, because they saw something that they'd probably never, ever seen in their life. They saw real courage. They saw real faith. They saw integrity. They saw honor. They saw commitment. They don't see that very much, and they respected what they saw. And of course, Swami then says a few things about his Jesus, our Jesus. He believes with all his heart that's the solution to their problems. And I do too. It's not only the solution to theirs, but ours as well. And today he's getting letter after letter after letter from people who are in government, who are in practices to try to deal with these problems. How can this strange foreign religion called Christianity make a difference with all these problems? And he's having an opportunity to tell them how that can happen. We may not ever have the opportunity to stand before 1,500 people and preach a one-word sermon. Hope I do someday, but I probably won't. But we do have the opportunity to do the same thing that he did in one way. And that's to let our life and our character and our courage and our faith preach for us. And we won't even have to say one word many times. Change the lives of other people around us. We have to do that if we're going to make a difference. Because you see, it wasn't what they heard, it's what they saw. And what they saw was Jesus living in a man. That's what needs to be seen in all of us. Thank you for helping us do what we do. We are honored to be able to do this work. And we are honored that you help us do it, that you're a partner with us. And we depend on you, and your help makes a difference. It takes us another mile down the road or to another country or another campaign or another state. It makes a difference, lots of difference in terms of souls that'll be there throughout eternity because of your help. So we thank you, and keep praying for us. I've probably run over. I'll stop right there. Okay. You going to sing us? An invitation song here in a minute, number 911. If these remarks that I've made here at the end about faith and about character have moved you to make a commitment to be different, to change your profile in life, and feel free to come, and we'll help you if you need to respond to the Lord's invitation.